"You're just a bitter old woman," my daughter-in-law said at my husband's memorial dinner, and the room went so quiet I could hear the ice settle in every glass. It was the 5th anniversary of William's passing, and I had spent all afternoon trying to make myself believe this dinner was about love. I had pressed my navy dress until the seams were sharp, pinned the small pearl brooch William gave me on our 40th anniversary, and driven 12 miles across Lancaster with a casserole dish warm on the seat beside me. Ashley had called 3 days earlier, her voice soft as church music, saying, "Eleanor, we should all be together this year." William would have wanted that. I wanted to believe her. At 69, you learn to accept small kindnesses wherever they appear, even when they come from someone who has made a habit of making you feel like a guest in your own family. Michael opened the door but did not quite meet my eyes. My son used to run down the porch steps when he saw my car, back when his sneakers were always muddy and his front teeth were too big for his face. That evening he only stepped aside and said, "Hey Mom," like I was someone delivering mail. Ashley stood in the dining room wearing a cream sweater and a smile that did not reach her eyes. The table was set beautifully, I will give her that. White candles. Good china. William's framed photograph placed at the center, beside a vase of pale blue hydrangeas, the same flowers I planted along our front porch the first spring we bought the house. For a few minutes I let myself think maybe I had judged her too harshly. Maybe grief had sharpened all of us in different ways. Maybe this dinner could be a beginning. Then I noticed my chair was not beside Michael's. It was at the far end of the table near the hallway, where people pass behind you with plates and you have to turn your whole body just to be included. I said nothing. I sat down, folded my napkin in my lap, and listened while Ashley talked about school schedules, kitchen renovations, and how expensive everything had become. William's name came up only once, when she said the house he left behind was too much responsibility for one person to cling to. I looked across the table at Michael. He studied his fork. Ashley continued, gently at first, the way she always did when she wanted cruelty to sound like concern. "Eleanor, we all know you've had a hard time moving forward. But at some point, holding on becomes unhealthy." I asked her what she meant. She smiled, almost sadly, as if she had practiced that expression in the mirror. "I mean the house. The family can't keep circling around your moods forever." My hand tightened around the water glass, but I kept my voice even. "That house is my home." Ashley's smile disappeared. Not all at once. Slowly, like a curtain being pulled back. "No," she said. "It's William's house. It's Michael's future. And honestly, Eleanor, you make everything harder because you refuse to accept that." Michael shifted in his chair but still said nothing. I looked at my grandson Noah, who was staring down at his plate. Little Emma had stopped chewing. Even the children understood when a room had become unsafe. I set my glass down carefully. "Ashley, this is not the night for this conversation." That was when she laughed. A small dry sound. "Of course it isn't. Nothing is ever the right time with you. You're always wounded, always offended, always acting like everyone owes you something because you're lonely." She leaned forward, her voice rising just enough for every person at that table to hear. "You're just a bitter old woman." No one moved. The candles flickered between us. William's photograph sat in the middle of the table, his gentle eyes looking out over the family he had spent his life protecting. I waited for Michael to speak. One word would have been enough. "Mom, stop. Ashley, don't. Anything." But my son only looked down at his plate, his shoulders rounded, his silence heavier than her insult. I placed my napkin beside my untouched dinner. My fingers trembled, so I moved slowly because dignity sometimes depends on not letting people see how badly they have cut you. I stood and reached for my coat on the back of the chair. Ashley exhaled, as if my leaving proved her point. Michael finally looked up. "Mom, don't be dramatic." I looked at him, then really looked at him, and for the first time in years I saw not the boy I raised, but the man who had learned to stay comfortable while someone else did the hurting. "I'm not being dramatic," I said. "I'm being finished." I walked to the front door without raising my voice. Behind me, Ashley muttered something about making everything about myself. I opened the door to the cold Pennsylvania night, and the air felt cleaner than that dining room. As I stepped onto the porch, I saw a manila folder resting on the entry table beside Ashley's purse. My name was printed on the top sheet. So was William's. Below it were the words, "Property transition proposal." I did not touch it. I did not need to. Something inside me had already gone still. That night, I understood Ashley had not invited me to honor my husband. She had invited me to remove me. The drive home took 18 minutes, though I remember almost none of the road. I remember the glow of the dashboard. I remember the casserole dish sliding slightly on the passenger seat each time I turned. I remember stopping at a red light on Harrisburg Pike and realizing my hands were still gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles ached. The house was dark when I pulled into my driveway, except for the porch light I always left on out of habit. William had installed that light himself after I tripped on the front step one winter evening, and for years he would joke that he was not protecting the porch, he was protecting his favorite woman in all of Pennsylvania. I sat in the car for a long moment after turning off the engine. The silence was not peaceful. It felt like a room waiting for bad news. When I finally carried the casserole inside, it was still warm, untouched beneath the foil. I set it on the kitchen counter and stood there looking at it like it belonged to someone else, some other woman who had believed a family dinner could still mean family. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon dish soap and old wood. The hydrangeas outside the window had gone bare for the season, their brown stems moving in the November wind. I hung my coat on the hook by the back door, slipped off my shoes, and placed William's pearl brooch on the small tray near the sink. Then I made tea because there are moments when an old routine is the only thing keeping you upright. I did not cry. Not because I was strong, but because the hurt had settled somewhere too deep for tears to reach. That house was not simply property. It was the first real thing William and I ever owned together. We bought it in 1983, when interest rates were high and our savings account was thin enough to make us laugh and worry at the same time. The paint was peeling, the basement smelled damp, and the upstairs bathroom faucet screamed every time you turned it on. But William walked through the front door, looked at the morning light falling across the living room floor and said, "Ellie, this place has bones." He worked double shifts for almost a year so we could replace the roof before winter. I sewed curtains for every room because store-bought ones felt too expensive. Michael learned to ride his bicycle in the driveway, crashing into the same lilac bush 3 times before William finally ran beside him with one hand on the seat. We measured his height on the pantry door frame every birthday until he was 16 and too proud to stand still for it. That house held baby teeth in envelopes, Christmas mornings in flannel pajamas, school projects drying on the dining room table, and William's quiet breathing beside me through 44 years of marriage. After he passed, the rooms became larger. The stairs sounded louder. His chair by the window stayed empty no matter how many times I told myself to move it, but it was still my home. Ashley started calling it something else about 6 months after the funeral. First it was subtle. She would say, "the family property," as if the word home was too intimate for me to keep. Then she began asking practical questions with a smile that made them sound harmless. Did I really need all that space? Was the yard becoming too much? Had I considered what a burden maintenance could become at my age? I answered politely because I had been raised to believe that peace was something women protected, even when peace protected no one in return. Then one spring afternoon, I came home from the pharmacy and found Ashley's sport utility vehicle in my driveway. She was standing on the front porch with a man in a gray suit, pointing toward the side yard. When she saw me, her smile appeared too quickly. She said he was only a contractor giving advice about drainage. But his shoes were too polished for mud work, and he carried a leather folder, not a toolbox. That evening, Michael told me Ashley was only trying to help. Helping, I had learned, was the word people used when they wanted control to sound kind. Over time, little things changed. The spare key disappeared from under the ceramic flower pot and was replaced without anyone asking me. A stack of my old photo albums moved from the living room shelf to a box in the hallway closet. Ashley said the shelves looked cluttered. The blue armchair William loved was pushed into the den because, according to her, it made the room feel dated. Each change was small enough to forgive, and that was how she did it. One small trespass at a time. One rearranged object. One corrected memory. One sentence that made me feel unreasonable for noticing. Standing in my kitchen that night, still hearing her voice from the dinner table, I realized she had not been trying to make me comfortable. She had been trying to make me disappear from my own life. The next morning, I woke before sunrise with the same sentence still sitting in my chest. Bitter old woman. It had followed me into sleep and waited for me when I opened my eyes. I made coffee in William's old ceramic mug, the one with a faded trout painted on the side, and sat at the kitchen table while the sky turned pale over Lancaster. The house was quiet in that particular way it becomes quiet after you realize someone has been rewriting your life while you were still living it. I took out my phone and opened the family group message. For years it had been called Whitaker Family, with a little red heart beside the name. Now it was gone. At first I thought I had pressed the wrong button. I searched again. Nothing. Then I opened Ashley's social media page, something I rarely did because I had learned that other people's pictures could hurt more than their words. There they were. Last Easter. Michael, Ashley, Noah, Emma, and 3 of Ashley's cousins standing in front of my own hydrangeas, smiling beneath the porch William built. The caption said, "First spring gathering at the family house." I stared at those words until they blurred. Not Eleanor's house. Not Grandma's house. The family house. I scrolled further. A Labor Day barbecue I had never been invited to. A photograph of Emma holding a sparkler in my backyard on the 4th of July, even though Ashley had told me they were spending the holiday with friends in York. A Christmas picture on my front steps, posted 2 days after Ashley had said the children were too tired for visitors. In every photograph there was space where I should have been. Not empty space. Arranged space. Like a chair had been removed before anyone sat down. I set the phone on the table and pressed my palm flat against the wood. William had refinished that table twice. Once after Michael carved his initials into the underside with a pocket knife, and again after I spilled cranberry sauce across it during Thanksgiving of 1998. I could hear William laughing as he sanded the stain away, saying, "A home should show evidence that people lived here." But Ashley did not want evidence that I had lived there. She wanted clean surfaces. New pictures. A version of the Whitaker family that began with her and moved forward without me. Around 10 o'clock the phone rang. It was Claire Bennett from 2 houses down, a widow with sharp eyes and a garden that always looked better than mine no matter how hard I tried. Claire and I had not spoken much since William passed, not because of any argument, but because grief has a way of making even kind neighbors feel far away. "Eleanor," she said carefully, "I hope I am not bothering you." Her voice had that cautious softness people use when they are holding something unpleasant. I wrapped both hands around my mug. "You are not bothering me." She paused. "I saw Ashley at your house yesterday afternoon." I looked toward the hallway, suddenly aware of every closed door. "Yesterday. Around 2:30. You were not home." "I know because your car was gone." The room seemed to narrow. "Was she alone?" Another pause. "No. She had a man with her. Tall, dark coat, carrying one of those measuring wheels. They walked around the side yard and out toward the garage. I thought maybe you were planning repairs, but something about it felt strange." He took pictures of the front porch. I did not answer right away. I looked at the ceramic flower pot by the back door where the old spare key used to be. Ashley had returned a new key to me months earlier, saying the lock had been sticking and Michael thought it should be changed. I had thanked her for changing the lock on my own door. "Claire," I said slowly, "did you hear anything?" "Only a little. I was trimming the boxwoods." Ashley said something about curb appeal, and making the listing attractive to older buyers who wanted character without too many updates. The word listing landed quietly, but it landed hard. I closed my eyes. For a moment I saw William in his work shirt, kneeling by the front steps with a level in one hand and a pencil behind his ear. I saw Michael at 8 years old running across the lawn with grass stains on both knees. I saw myself carrying newborn Noah through the front door while Ashley rested after coming home from the hospital. Every memory stood up at once, not loud, just present. "Thank you for telling me," I said. Claire lowered her voice. "Eleanor, I do not want to get involved in family matters, but I have watched that young woman come and go when you are not there. More than once." I turned my head toward the living room. The blue armchair had been moved back near the window after I found it in the den. I had done it myself slowly, inch by inch, because some things are worth the effort even when no one sees you making it. "How many times?" I asked. "At least 4 in the last 2 months. After we hung up I sat very still. There was no need to guess anymore. Ashley was not only insulting me at dinner tables or erasing me from photographs. She was preparing my house for a future I had never agreed to. That was the moment the hurt changed shape. It did not become anger exactly. Anger is hot. This was colder. Clearer. I opened the drawer beside the stove and pulled out William's old address book. His attorney's name was written in blue ink on the first page under B. Harold Bennett, Estate Planning. I had not called Harold since the funeral. My finger rested on the number for a long time before I picked up the phone. When his assistant answered, I heard my own voice come out steady. This is Eleanor Whitaker. I need to speak with Mr. Bennett about my husband's estate. Today, if possible. Harold Bennett's office was on the second floor of a brick building downtown, above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon rolls and strong coffee. William used to tease that Harold chose the location so grieving widows would have something sweet nearby after hearing hard news. I had not stepped inside that building since the week after the funeral, when every document looked blurry and every signature felt like admitting William was not coming back. That morning I parked along North Queen Street and sat in the car for a full minute, watching people walk past with paper cups in their hands, their lives moving at a normal speed. Mine felt as if it had slowed down enough for me to notice every breath. Harold's assistant, Denise, recognized me the moment I entered. Her expression softened, but she did not use the pitying voice people often say for women my age. She simply said, Mrs. Whitaker, Mr. Bennett is expecting you. Harold stood when I came in. He was older than I remembered, thinner through the shoulders, with silver hair and reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. On his desk sat a thick folder with William's name printed on the tab. Seeing those letters in black ink made my throat tighten. Eleanor, Harold said gently, I am sorry this is the reason you had to come in. I sat across from him, placed my purse in my lap, and folded my hands over it so he would not see them tremble. I need to understand what William arranged. All of it. Harold studied my face for a moment, then nodded. He opened the folder, but before he read anything, he leaned back and removed his glasses. Your husband worried about you being pressured after he was gone. The words entered the room quietly, but they changed the air. Pressed by whom? I asked, though I already knew. Harold did not answer directly. He turned several pages and pulled out a copy of the trust agreement. The Lancaster house was placed into the Whitaker family residence trust 14 months before William passed. You are the lifetime beneficiary. That means you have the legal right to live in that home for the rest of your life, regardless of what Michael wants, regardless of what Ashley wants, regardless of market conditions or family opinions. I looked down at the paper. The legal language was dense, but one sentence stood out with surprising clarity. Eleanor May Whitaker shall retain exclusive lifetime occupancy. Exclusive. Lifetime. Occupancy. 3 words William had left behind like a locked door between me and anyone who thought I could be moved like furniture. Harold continued. Michael is named as a remainder beneficiary, but only after your passing, and only if certain conditions are met. I looked up. What conditions? Harold's mouth tightened slightly. There is a protective clause. William insisted on it. If Michael, his spouse, or anyone acting under their direction attempts to coerce, mislead, or pressure you into surrendering your occupancy rights, selling the residence, or transferring control of trust assets, Michael's benefits can be suspended pending court review. I sat very still. Outside the office window, a delivery truck hissed to a stop at the curb. Inside, I heard only William's voice from years ago, telling me to read before I signed anything, even birthday cards if Ashley had written them. At the time, I thought grief had made him suspicious. Now I understood he had been paying attention. Did he know? I asked. Harold closed the folder halfway, then opened it again, as if choosing honesty over comfort. He saw enough to worry. He did not want to accuse anyone without cause, but he wanted you protected. Protected. The word should have warmed me. Instead, it broke something open. Not in a loud way. Just a small, clean crack through the last piece of me that had believed Ashley's behavior was only personality, only tension, only the awkwardness between a mother and a daughter-in-law who never quite fit together. William had seen it before I did. He had seen the way Ashley interrupted when I spoke, the way Michael stopped visiting unless she came along, the way every family decision slowly began passing through her hands. There is something else, Harold said. He reached for another sheet. 2 weeks ago, our office received an email from Ashley. My fingers tightened around the clasp of my purse. Ashley contacted you? Yes. She asked about the process for selling the residence after you relocated. She said the family was trying to avoid unnecessary delays. He slid the printed email toward me. Ashley's name appeared at the top. Her words were polite, helpful, efficient. That was what made them so cold. She had written about my relocation as if it were already decided, as if I had already agreed to leave the rooms where my life had happened. Did she say I approved it? My voice sounded calm, almost distant. Harold looked at me over his glasses. She implied it. I read the email twice. There was no insult in it. No raised voice. No bitter old woman. Just clean sentences designed to move me out of my own home. I placed the paper back on his desk with both hands. Last night, she put a folder near the front door. It had my name on it. Property transition proposal. Harold's face changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Do not sign anything she gives you. Not a note. Not a consent form. Not even something she claims is only for review. I nodded. What should I do? Harold tapped the trust folder once with his finger. For now, nothing that lets them know how much you know. I looked out the window at the traffic moving below. Cars stopping. Cars turning. People crossing the street without realizing a woman above them had just learned her husband had left her more than memories. He had left her a shield. When I turned back to Harold, my hands had stopped shaking. Then I will let Ashley keep talking, I said. People like her always do. For 3 days I said nothing. I watered the African violets in the kitchen window. I paid the electric bill. I folded William's old flannel shirts and placed them back in the cedar chest, even though Ashley once told me keeping them was unhealthy. I let the house continue breathing around me, floorboards settling at night, furnace humming in the basement, mail sliding through the front slot each afternoon. Silence had always been mistaken for weakness in our family. That was useful now. On Thursday evening, Michael called. Not Ashley. Michael. His name lit up my phone while I was peeling potatoes for soup, and for one foolish second my heart lifted the way a mother's heart does before it remembers the truth. Hi, Mom, he said too brightly. Ashley and I were wondering if we could come by Saturday morning. Just to talk. Nothing heavy. I looked at the potato in my hand, half peeled, pale under the kitchen light. About what? There was a pause, just long enough for me to know Ashley was nearby. Just practical stuff. The house. Your comfort. The future. Your comfort. The future. Phrases polished smooth enough to hide the blade underneath. I wiped my hand on a dish towel and leaned against the counter. Saturday is fine. His relief came too quickly. Great. 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, I said. After we hung up, I stood at the sink while the water ran cold over my hands. I did not call Harold. I did not call Claire. I did not need anyone to tell me what was coming. Saturday morning arrived gray and damp, with a thin rain tapping the kitchen windows. I set out coffee because I was still myself even if they had forgotten how to behave like family. At exactly 10, Ashley's white sport utility vehicle pulled into the driveway behind Michael's sedan. They came up the walk together, Ashley carrying a bakery box tied with red string. She smiled when I opened the door. Eleanor, you look rested. It was the kind of compliment that meant she had expected me to look broken. Michael kissed my cheek quickly and stepped inside without taking off his shoes. Ashley placed the bakery box on the kitchen table. Apple turnovers from the bakery downtown. William's favorite. Not mine. I noticed that too. We sat in the kitchen, where so much of my life had happened that even betrayal felt rude sitting there. Ashley poured coffee before I could offer, moving around my counters as if she had already practiced ownership. We want this to be a peaceful conversation, she began. Michael nodded. His hands were wrapped around his mug, though he had not taken a sip. Mom, nobody is trying to take anything from you. I looked at him. That is an unusual way to begin a conversation. Ashley's smile tightened. What Michael means is we are trying to prevent a crisis before it happens. This house is old. The stairs are steep. The driveway gets icy. You are alone here. Alone. She said it like a diagnosis. I have lived here for more than 40 years. I said. That does not mean it is still the right place, Ashley replied smoothly. She reached into her large leather purse and pulled out a glossy brochure. On the front was a smiling gray-haired couple walking beside a pond that looked too blue to be real. Willow Creek Senior Residences. Located 42 miles away, outside Harrisburg. We toured it last week, she said. It is lovely. There are activities, meals, transportation to appointments. You would not have to worry about anything. You toured it, I repeated. For me. She nodded as if this were kindness. Michael cleared his throat. Mom, maybe it would be good. You could meet people. I know people. People your own age, Ashley added. There it was. Quiet. Polite. A fence being built around me, one word at a time. I looked at the brochure, then at my son. And what happens to this house? Michael's eyes moved toward Ashley before returning to me. We would figure that out later. Ashley reached into her purse again and removed a folder. Not manila this time. Blue with a neat white label. Eleanor Whitaker Transition Documents. She placed it on the table between us. There is no pressure, she said, while pressing 2 fingers on top of the folder as if to keep it from moving. But there are a few forms that would allow Michael to help manage things. Bills, repairs, communication with the residents, eventual property decisions. It is all very standard. I opened the folder. The first page had soft language at the top about support and planning. The second page did not. Durable power of attorney. Financial authority. Real property management. My name appeared in spaces where my signature was expected. Michael's name appeared where control would go. Ashley leaned forward. It would make everything easier. Easier for whom, I wondered. Not out loud. Out loud, I said. This is a lot to review. Her eyes sharpened for half a second before the smile returned. Of course. But honestly, Eleanor, the longer we wait, the more complicated you make this for everyone. Michael whispered. Ashley. She ignored him. We are trying to help you before something happens, and you are forced into a worse situation. I closed the folder gently. I am tired. Ashley blinked. What? I said I am tired. I would like to sleep on this before I sign anything. Michael looked relieved. Ashley did not. She looked at me the way someone looks at a locked door when they thought they had the key. Fine, she said. But please do not turn this into another emotional performance. I stood. Thank you for the turnovers. They left the folder on my table. I watched them back out of the driveway through the lace curtain. Then I picked up the phone and called Harold Bennett. When he answered, I said, They brought the papers. Harold did not sound surprised. Do not move them. I am coming over. Harold arrived 40 minutes later in a dark raincoat, carrying his leather briefcase and wearing the expression of a man who had seen families become strangers over paper. I had left the blue folder exactly where Ashley placed it, unopened beyond the first few pages, sitting between 2 untouched apple turnovers on the kitchen table. Harold paused in the doorway as if he understood the insult of those pastries more than anyone else would have. William loved those, he said quietly. Yes, I answered. Ashley remembered that. She did not remember that I never cared for them. Harold removed his coat, folded it over the back of a chair, and put on his glasses. He did not rush. That was one of the reasons William trusted him. Some people read documents as if they are looking for words. Harold read them as if he is looking for fingerprints. Page by page, he went through the folder while I sat across from him with my hands around a cup of tea that had gone cold. The rain tapped steadily against the windows. The house felt awake around us. This first page is intentionally vague, he said. Support planning. Senior transition. Family assistance. It is written to sound harmless. He turned to the next page. This is not harmless. I watched his eyes move down the document. Durable power of attorney. Broad financial authority. Real estate management authority. Access to bank accounts. Permission to communicate with financial institutions, insurance providers, and property agents. He looked up. If you sign this, Michael would have immediate legal authority to manage nearly everything in your name. My stomach tightened, though I had already understood enough to be afraid. Could he sell the house? Harold tapped the document with one finger. Not legally, because the trust still controls the residence. But this would let him create confusion, pressure institutions, hire agents, and make your resistance look like family conflict instead of attempted overreach. It would give them tools. Tools. Such a simple word for something that could dismantle a life. Harold took out his phone and photographed each page, then placed the documents back in the exact order Ashley had left them. Do you know where they got these forms? I asked. Some are standard templates. Some appear to have been modified. By Ashley. Possibly. Or by someone advising her badly. He said it carefully, but his face did not soften. There is another issue. He opened his briefcase and removed a printed email chain. After you called me the other day, I reviewed all recent communications involving your name, the trust, and the residence. Ashley sent more than one message. He slid the pages across the table. I read slowly. Ashley had written to a real estate agent named Brian Cole, describing my home as a soon-to-be available estate property in a desirable Lancaster neighborhood. She mentioned original woodwork, mature landscaping, and strong interest from buyers looking for character homes. She also wrote that the current occupant was elderly and emotionally attached, but the family expected the matter to resolve soon. The current occupant. Not mother. Not widow. Not Eleanor. Occupant. I set the paper down and looked toward the living room, where William's chair sat by the window with the Afghan I crocheted 20 years ago draped over one arm. She made me sound like a problem on the property, I said. Harold's voice was low. That is exactly what she did. For the first time that day, I felt the edge of tears. I pressed 2 fingers beneath my eyes and waited until the feeling passed. Tears would come later, maybe. Not now. What happens next? I asked. Harold leaned back. We document everything. The folder. The emails. Claire's observation, if she is willing to provide a written statement. We also send a formal notice to Michael that no one is authorized to act on your behalf, access the property for valuation, or discuss sale or transfer of the residence. But before we do that, I want to ask you something. What? Do you want to confront them privately? Or do you want them to reveal more? I looked at the blue folder, then at the bakery box, then at the pantry door frame where Michael's childhood height marks still climbed in pencil beneath layers of age. There was a mark from his 10th birthday, crooked because he had stood on his toes and William caught him cheating. I smiled at the memory before I could stop myself. That boy had trusted me with every scraped knee, every bad dream, every broken toy. The man he became had sat at a table and allowed his wife to call me bitter because silence cost him nothing. Ashley is planning something else, I said. She would not leave this folder unless she believed she had already won. Harold nodded. I agree. That evening, as if she had heard us speak her name, Ashley texted me. The message was neat, polite, and cold. Eleanor, we are hosting a family meeting next Saturday at our house to clarify plans and avoid further misunderstanding. It would be best if you attended with an open mind. I showed Harold the phone. His eyebrows lifted slightly. A family meeting. That is what she calls it. A second message appeared before I could respond. Michael invited a few relatives so everyone can support the transition. Support the transition. There it was again. A decision dressed up as care. Harold took off his glasses and placed them on the table. Would you like me to be there? I looked at William's photograph on the mantel. For years I had believed protecting the family meant absorbing discomfort quietly, smoothing over sharp edges until no one noticed I was bleeding inside. But I was done making my pain convenient. Yes, I said. But not at the beginning. Harold understood immediately. You want her to speak first. I picked up the blue folder and slid it back into its neat little stack. I want everyone to hear exactly who she is when she thinks no one can stop her. Saturday came with a pale blue sky and the kind of cold that makes every sound sharper. I dressed carefully, not for Ashley, and not for Michael, but for myself. I chose a charcoal wool dress, low black shoes, and the pearl brooch William had given me, the same one I wore the night Ashley decided to mistake my restraint for defeat. Before leaving, I walked through the house slowly. I touched the back of William's chair. I straightened the framed photograph on the mantel. I looked at the pencil marks on the pantry door frame and let my fingers rest on Michael's name at age 12. For a moment, I allowed myself to remember him before fear made him small, before comfort made him quiet, Before marriage taught him that keeping peace with his wife mattered more than protecting his mother's dignity. Then I picked up my purse and drove to his house. Ashley had made the meeting look like a family gathering. That was her gift, making pressure look like hospitality. There was coffee on the sideboard, a plate of cookies, fresh flowers in a glass vase, and enough relatives sitting in the living room to make my refusal seem unreasonable before I had even spoken. Michael's cousin Diane was there with her husband. Ashley's sister Megan sat near the window, scrolling on her phone. Uncle Robert, William's younger brother, looked uncomfortable in the armchair. Even Brian Cole, the real estate agent Claire had described, stood near the fireplace holding a tablet as if he had arrived for a business appointment, and not the quiet dismantling of an old woman's home. Michael came toward me first. "Mom, thanks for coming." His voice was gentle, but his eyes were tired and evasive. Ashley followed him, bright and polished in a pale green blouse, her hair smooth, her smile calm. "Eleanor, I hope today can be productive." Productive. Not healing. Not honest. Productive. I nodded and took the seat farthest from the center of the room, the same way she always placed me near the edge of things. For the first 10 minutes, Ashley controlled the conversation with a folder in her lap and concern in her voice. She told everyone I had been struggling alone. She said the house was too large, too old, too expensive, too emotionally complicated. She said Michael was losing sleep worrying about me. Michael stared at the carpet. She said Willow Creek Senior Residences had a lovely walking path, weekly card games, and transportation to medical appointments. She said the family only wanted what was best. I listened. I did not interrupt. Sometimes silence is not surrender. Sometimes it is a clean table where people place their own evidence. Then Brian cleared his throat and said, "From a market standpoint, spring would be ideal. Homes with original woodwork are moving quickly in Lancaster right now." Uncle Robert turned his head toward me. "Eleanor, you agreed to sell?" Before I could answer, Ashley said, "She is processing it. It is hard for her to let go." I looked at her. I was asked to attend a family meeting. I was not told a real estate agent would be here. A small ripple moved through the room. Diane sat straighter. Michael finally looked at Ashley. "Ash, I thought Brian was only here to explain options." Ashley's smile held, but barely. "That is what he is doing. Options usually come after permission," I said. Her eyes hardened. There she was. Not the soft voice. Not the helpful daughter-in-law. The woman underneath. "Eleanor, this is exactly the problem," she said. "Every practical conversation becomes an accusation. Everyone is exhausted from walking around your feelings." No one spoke. Ashley leaned forward, her voice losing its polish. "You have made Michael feel guilty for years. You sit in that house surrounded by old furniture and sad memories, and you expect the entire family to orbit around your grief. We are trying to move forward, but you keep dragging everyone backward." Michael whispered her name, but she brushed past it. "No, she needs to hear it. She thinks being William's widow gives her the right to control everything." I folded my hands in my lap. My pulse was steady. Strangely steady. "Control what, Ashley?" She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "The house. Michael's future. This family. You act helpless when it suits you, but the truth is, you enjoy making everyone prove they still need you." Uncle Robert's face changed. Diane looked down at the floor. Megan stopped scrolling. Ashley stood then, as if height might turn her cruelty into authority. "You are not being protected, Eleanor. You are being accommodated. And frankly, everyone is tired of it. You are just a bitter old woman who cannot stand seeing your son build his own life." The room went completely still. This time I did not rise. This time I did not leave. I looked at Michael and waited. His mouth opened then closed. He was pale. Afraid. But still silent. I nodded once, not to him but to myself. "Thank you," I said. Ashley blinked. "For what?" "For saying it clearly." Then the doorbell rang. Ashley turned toward the hallway, irritated. I did not turn. I already knew who it was. Michael looked confused as he walked to the door. A few seconds later, Harold Bennett stepped into the living room in his dark suit, carrying the same leather briefcase he had brought to my kitchen table. Behind him stood Claire Bennett, small and straight-backed in a navy coat, her eyes clear and serious. Ashley's face changed before anyone said a word. Not fear exactly. Recognition. The look of a person who has just realized the room is no longer arranged in her favor. Harold did not announce himself loudly. He did not need to. He entered the living room with the calm weight of a man who understood that the right document, placed on the right table, could change the temperature of an entire family. Claire stood just behind him, her gloved hands folded over her purse. Ashley looked from Harold to me, then to Michael, searching for the part of the room that still belonged to her. "What is this?" she asked, her voice thinner than it had been a minute earlier. Harold glanced at me first, waiting for permission. I nodded. Only then did he set his briefcase on the coffee table and open it. "My name is Harold Bennett. I represented William Whittaker in his estate planning, and I currently represent Mrs. Eleanor Whittaker regarding matters connected to the Whittaker Family Residence Trust." The word trust moved through the room like a cold draft. Michael's face lifted sharply. "Trust?" Ashley spoke before Harold could answer. "This is a private family discussion. I do not know why Eleanor felt the need to bring an attorney." Harold removed a folder and placed it on the table. "Mrs. Whittaker brought an attorney because legal documents have been presented to her regarding financial authority and property decisions. She has every right to seek counsel." Uncle Robert leaned forward. "What legal documents?" Ashley's smile returned, but it was strained now, stretched too tight. "Just planning forms. Standard things. We were trying to help." Harold opened the folder. The documents Mrs. Whittaker was asked to sign included a durable power of attorney granting broad financial authority to Michael Whittaker, including communication with financial institutions and real property management. Michael turned toward Ashley. "You said they were transition forms." "They are," Ashley said quickly. "That is what those are called." "No," Harold said, not raising his voice. "That is not what they are." The room settled into a silence so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. Harold slid a copy of the trust summary onto the coffee table. "The Lancaster residence is not Michael's property to sell. It is not Ashley's property to market. The home is held by the Whittaker Family Residence Trust. Mrs. Eleanor Whittaker is the lifetime beneficiary with exclusive occupancy rights." He paused, letting the words land where they needed to. "In simple terms, she has the legal right to live in that house for the rest of her life. No family vote, market condition, or private plan can remove her from it." Diane brought one hand to her mouth. Uncle Robert looked at me, then down at the papers. Michael seemed unable to speak. Ashley's face had gone very still. "That is not what William told Michael," she said. Harold looked at her. "William was very clear." He turned another page. "He was also clear about another matter. The trust contains a protective clause. If Michael, his spouse, or anyone acting under their direction attempts to coerce, mislead, or pressure Mrs. Whittaker into surrendering her occupancy rights, transferring control, or selling the residence, Michael's future benefits under the trust may be suspended pending court review." Michael whispered. "Dad wrote that." Harold's eyes softened, but only slightly. "Your father wanted your mother protected." I watched my son absorb that. Not as a legal fact, but as a judgment from a man he could no longer argue with. Ashley crossed her arms. "This is ridiculous. No one coerced anyone." Claire stepped forward then. Her voice was small but steady. "I saw you at Eleanor's house when she was not home. More than once." Ashley turned toward her. "Excuse me." Claire did not flinch. "I saw you bring a real estate agent to the property. I saw him measuring near the garage and taking photographs of the porch. I heard you discuss curb appeal and a listing." Brian Cole shifted near the fireplace, his face red. "I was told the family was preparing the property." Harold turned to him. "By whom?" Brian looked at Ashley. That was answer enough. Harold removed another set of papers. "There are also emails. Mrs. Whittaker has copies. One message from Ashley Whittaker to Mr. Cole refers to the home as a soon-to-be available estate property. Another message to my office asks about avoiding delays after Mrs. Whittaker relocated." Ashley's lips parted, but no words came out. Michael stood then, slowly, as if his body had become heavier. "Ashley," he said, "did you do this without Mom agreeing?" She looked at him with sudden irritation, not guilt. I did it because someone had to be practical. Your mother was never going to leave that house willingly. There it was. The clean truth, stripped of flowers and pastries and concern. I felt no triumph. Only a deep tiredness and beneath it, relief. Harold closed the folder. Mrs. Whitaker will not be signing anything. No one is authorized to enter her property without her permission. Discuss sale of the residence. Present her with legal forms outside counsel. Or represent that she has agreed to relocate. A formal notice will follow. Ashley looked at me then, and for the first time since I had known her, she had no polished sentence ready. I stood smoothing the front of my dress. You called me bitter because I was standing in the way of what you wanted, I said. My voice did not shake. But I was never bitter, Ashley. I was home. Michael's eyes filled, but tears do not repair silence. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Behind me, no one tried to stop me. That was the first honest thing they had done all day. The formal notice arrived at Michael's house on Monday morning, but I did not call to ask how he took it. Harold sent me a copy by mail and another by email, though I printed it anyway and placed it in the same drawer where William used to keep appliance warranties and extra postage stamps. No person was authorized to enter my property without written permission. No person was authorized to speak for me regarding the residence. No person was authorized to present me with legal forms outside my attorney's review. The language was dry, almost boring, and yet I read it 3 times because every sentence gave a piece of my life back to me. On Tuesday, a locksmith came and changed the front and back door locks. He was a young man with kind eyes who asked if I wanted 4 copies of the new key. I said 2 would be enough. 1 for me, 1 for Harold's office in a sealed envelope. No spare key under the ceramic flower pot. No hidden key behind the loose brick near the garage. No convenient little entrance for people who confused access with permission. After he left, I stood on the porch and listened to the clean click of the new lock turning beneath my hand. It was a small sound. Felt enormous. Michael came by that evening just before sunset. I saw his car stop at the curb, not in the driveway, and for a moment I could see the boy in him again, standing at the edge of trouble, hoping I would open the door before he had to knock. I let him knock. When I opened it, he looked older than 42. His face was unshaven, his eyes red, his jacket hanging open in the cold. Mom, he said, can I come in? I looked past him to the empty street. Ashley was not with him. For a few minutes, I said. He stepped into the living room and stopped when he saw William's chair back by the window, the photo albums returned to the shelf, the blue glass bowl back on the coffee table where it had always caught the afternoon light. It must have felt strange to him, seeing the house look like itself again. He stood with his hands in his pockets. I did not know all of it, he said. I waited. I knew Ashley was looking at options. I knew she thought the house was too much for you. But I did not know about the emails. I did not know she brought Brian there when you were gone. He swallowed. I did not know about the power of attorney details. I looked at my son, and I wanted so badly for ignorance to be enough. It would have been easier, cleaner. A mother can forgive confusion. She can forgive mistakes. But silence is different. Silence sits beside cruelty and makes room for it. You knew she called me bitter, I said. You heard her. His eyes dropped. I should have stopped her. Yes, I said. You should have. He nodded, and for once he did not defend himself. I am sorry. The words were soft. Real maybe. But apologies are not keys. They do not unlock every door they helped close. I sat down in William's chair because it was mine now, because I no longer felt the need to leave it empty like a shrine. Michael remained standing. What happens now? He asked. Now, I said. You decide what kind of man you want to be without asking your wife to decide it for you. His face tightened, but he took it. And us. You and I will not go back to what we were by pretending nothing happened. If you want a relationship with me, it will be honest. It will be slow. And Ashley will not speak for you. Arrange my life, enter my home, or use my grandchildren as invitations or punishments. He closed his eyes. She is furious. That is not my emergency. For the first time in days, I saw something like understanding cross his face. Painful understanding, but understanding still. He nodded again. When he left, he did not ask for a key. That mattered. The following Saturday, Claire came over with a lemon pound cake and a packet of hydrangea bulbs she said were probably too ambitious for the season but worth trying anyway. We planted them along the front porch in the cold, our gloves damp with soil, our knees stiff when we stood. I laughed when she complained about the Pennsylvania weather, and the sound surprised me. It had been a long time since laughter came out of me without needing permission. By spring, small green shoots appeared near the porch steps. Michael began calling every Sunday afternoon. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I let it ring and called back later. He started taking Noah and Emma to breakfast without Ashley, and the first time they came to see me, Emma ran straight to the pantry door frame and asked why her father's name was written all over it. I gave her a pencil and measured her height beneath his. Michael watched from the kitchen doorway, quiet, ashamed, grateful. Ashley never apologized. Perhaps she could not. Perhaps apology requires a person to believe other people are real, not obstacles arranged around her desires. I stopped waiting for one. The house remained mine. Not because of papers alone, though the papers mattered. Not because William had saved me, though he had tried. It remained mine because I finally stopped treating my own life like something that needed family approval. Some evenings I still miss the version of my family I thought I had. I miss it the way you miss a dream after waking, not because it was true but because it felt warm while it lasted. Then I turn on the porch light, lock the door, and sit beside the window in the chair William loved. The hydrangeas are growing again. The house is quiet. But it is not empty. It is full of every truth I was finally brave enough to hear. For years I thought silence made me weak. That day, I learned silence only works when the truth is standing behind it.